a list of attend. Here we go, participants. There we go. Daria and I said Daria and Fanny, and is that Akila? Yeah, Akila and Allegra. Is that Allegra? Is that right? Um, Let me see here. Who else? Antoinette, Barbara. I see Bristol and Carmen Talbot. I know Carmen Talbot. Carmen is my daughter, that beautiful little girl that she is. I love you, Carmen. Claude Farrington, David Allen, Daria Webb, Doc Grant, Dr. Diane K. Dunn, Eddie, Fanny, Frederick, Gloria. Good morning, good morning, good morning. So let me go ahead and just kind of first of all, just as a reminder, the questions I'm going to answer first are the questions that you submitted in advance. If you want to submit questions to me in advance, just log in at theblackstockmarketprogram.com and you can submit your question. I will answer every single question that's submitted first, and then I'll go to some of the group questions. And we meet every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. So you should, if you're registered, Zoom should send you a reminder to remind you guys that we're about to start class. And so that's just, something that you may know in case you just joined the class. I woke up this morning. I was thinking, yesterday I had a conversation. Every now and then I'll talk to interesting people. And I had a conversation yesterday with this rapper. Her name is Sugar T. I don't know if you remember Sugar T. She's actually the sister of E40. And they had a really great song back in the day called Sprinkle Me. And it was one of my favorite songs of all time. And so somebody reached out and said, yeah, Sugar T'd like to talk to you. And I was like, okay, well, sure. Why not? And because I'd actually played her song for my 13-year-old. And I was like, yeah, this is what good music used to sound like. You got to hear it, Ding, 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 ding. Anybody remember that song? Anybody old enough to remember? Give me a yes if you remember that song. Well, anyway, we were talking about hip hop, the evolution of hip hop, in business. Actually, she's real interested in business. Her brother E40 is definitely interested in business. He raps about business. He raps about owning property. He raps about the things that we talk about in class, and also. The interesting thing was Alicia and I were talking about business and family, right? And if you remember that when Sugar T and E40 did that song "Sprinkle Me," first thing they talk about is he had that little verse that says the group that I'm with, the clique, shiggity shack legit, family orientated, gang related, it's the shit. Anybody remember that? Tell me if you remember that verse. I know I'm corny, I'm weird, but there's a financial lesson in this, right? So he was talking about family and how they had this group called the clique. And the reason they formed this group called the Clique, which is similar to maybe the Dog Pound or any other group that you've seen, Earth, Wind, and Fire. I met the brother from Earth, Wind, and Fire, the one that had the all the hair, the long hair. And I met him. I went to one of these celebrity parties in L.A. And I went up to him and I was like, oh, I was going to tell him, like, hey, Earth, Wind, and Fire, you guys have the best music of all time. And before I could even say anything to him, he looks at me and his eyes got big and he said, brother, I listen to you every day. And I'm like, well, I listen to you every day. This is great. So anyway, so when you talk about these groups, when you talk about these cliques, when you talk about family orientated, gang related, how do we connect that to economics? It almost seems like it's not even connected, but it has everything to do with economics. What people should understand when you're talking about doing what we're doing, we're going to mass produce young Black millionaires for the next generation. We are mass producing children that are going to be young Black millionaires or very close to it around the year 2040, 2050. That's when our children will be full grown adults. That's when we're going to hand the torch over and let them take over the world. Well, a lot of that is linked to family. A lot of that is linked to culture. And so when you think about E40 and Sugar T forming this group called the Clique, and remember their family's been, E40's family is all about economics. They're all about wealth building and all that. He raps about it. She does business. That's why she wanted to call me, because she was like, hey, I like what you're doing. I want to talk about business. And the thing is that I think that they would probably agree that that wealth and business connects to family. That if you have, that when you talk about, well, why do you form a group called the Clique? Why not just do it individually? Well, because when you're trying to do everything individually, it's really, really hard. Building a company is gang related by nature. A corporation is nothing but a gang affiliation. If I work for Apple and you work for Apple, and there's 100,000 of us working for Apple, and we're rolling that deep, then we can't help but to make money, because we're combining our resources. We're bringing together all of our intelligence. We're bringing together all of our assets, we're bringing together all of our skill, we're bringing together all of our labor. And so by working together as a clique, as a group, being gang affiliated as Xerox or Apple or Ford or IBM, there's thousands of gang, economic gangs formed around the world, economic families formed around the world. Then that's how you build wealth. That's how you make money. So what I want you to encourage you to do is to think of your family, particularly some of y'all got crazy relatives who don't want to listen, who don't want to learn, who don't want to be smart, who are trifling as hell, ridiculous, who have bad culture in their blood. I know this. I understand this. I'm black too. We all go through this. But even white folks, they got their crazy stuff going on too. So I would encourage you to begin the process by thinking about the family that you control. You know, you are the king or the queen of your household, and you got these little people called children, and you get to shape the culture. You get to tell your children what their values are going to be. You get to talk about, okay, this is how we operate as a family unit. So when I'm talking to my girls and I'm talking to my kids can tell you in a second that I'm always talking in a way that says that we are a clique. We are an empire. We are a group. We are a team. That means you bring your resources together. You bring your skill together. You start businesses together. You invest together. You build wealth together, and that's how you become successful. So with that being said, let me be real specific too. When you're talking about building a young black millionaire, if you go to the allblackagenda.com, the $5 a day investing plan is there. And I want to make sure everybody does that. If you haven't started doing something like that, go look at it and at least internalize it and understand what it means so that you understand how wealth is built on autopilot. If you go do that, if you do that now, right now, today, it's totally free. Just go to the allblackagenda.com. On that page, that $5 a day investing plan literally will position your child. If you have a young child, say under the age of 10, that child will have hundreds of thousands of dollars in wealth by the time they hit their, maybe 25 to 30 years old. That's a very big deal because most 25 to 30-year-olds barely have any money at all. I know I didn't have a pot to pee in because nobody built anything for me. I didn't have a clique, right? And the thing about capitalism that's really interesting is that it's hard to practice capitalism when you have no capital, right? Well, what is capital? Well, capital is assets that make money for you. Capital is owning a home, which allows you to make moves because you can pull equity out of the home to make investments. Capital means owning stock. If I own shares of stock, then I've got something to lean back on in case I lose my job. Capital means having some share of a business or maybe running a business, right? Because then I've got this business that's a moneymaker for me that's allowing me to do well. Well, a lot of us came into the game of capitalism with no capital. That's like trying to play football with no equipment and no training, right? You ain't even got a ball. You showing up you trying to play in the Super, you trying to win the Super Bowl, and you ain't even got a ball. You ain't got no pads. You don't have any skill. You don't have a strategy. You're gonna get killed. You're not gonna win. Oh, hold on. Let me turn this off. Sorry. You're not gonna win the Super Bowl. You're not going to win the Super Bowl if you've never played football before. So a lot of times, the reason that you see so much struggle, so much despair, give me a yes in the chat if you follow what I'm saying. The reason you see so much economic struggle is because you got black kids that are pushed into the game of capitalism with absolutely no capital. They're showing up in a world that is gang affiliated and they don't have a gang. They don't have a clique. They don't have a family that they can go to, right? If you think about mafia movies are about wealthy gangsters and everything's about family. Family is everything. Well, why is family so important? Well, because they know that their clique, their herd, their gang is what keeps them safe. If you go to most other countries around the world, go to Nigeria. Nigeria has one of the strongest, most powerful, amazing cultures on the planet. And if you go to Nigeria, almost nothing is more important than family in Nigeria. If you go to China, almost nothing is more important than family and the clique in China. If you're not part of the clique, then you don't exist. Literally, when I taught my class in China, I taught some wonderful students when I was there. They were very respectful, very smart. I remember one of the kids invited me to play basketball with him in his clique, and I was like, "Why are you inviting me? Like, I don't get it. Back at home, we just show up to the court and you just play with whoever's there." And I didn't understand until I got to the court that when I didn't have a clique, I wasn't playing. Nobody would play with me. They were like, "We don't know you," and it wasn't racial. It wasn't like, "Oh, we don't play with Negroes." No, they love black people. They had black basketball. They had NBA. They love the NBA actually more in China than they do in the United States. So they see black people on TV all the time. They have no problem. They don't care. You're not one of them, but they don't care if you're black. It was more like, we don't know you. You're not part of our clique. So we're not even going to affiliate with you, right? So what I'm saying to you is that when you're talking about creating young black millionaires for the next generation, figure out like, what is my clique? If you don't have one, go get one. Go join an investment club. Get around some black people that are really that are doing great things, and black folks that are going to speak positive energy into your life. Start with your children. Train them specifically and deliberately. Be very intentional about helping them understand like, we are a family. We are a unit. Nothing's more important than family. We help each other. We back each other up. We come through for each other. We don't let each other down. We don't steal from each other. Like, you have to have a code. Most cliques, most families, most groups, most gangs have a code of conduct. They have a code of behavior. The military has a code of conduct. The Crips and Bloods have a code of conduct. Or the Apple computer has a code of conduct. Police departments have a code of conduct, right? Governments have a code of conduct. Every group, every clique, every gang has a code of conduct that holds together the integrity of the structure of that gang. And if anybody wants to destroy you, what they'll do is they'll try to destroy that code of conduct. They'll try to get people to violate that code of conduct. How do you think they broke down the Black Panthers? How do you think they got the Black Panthers to disperse? Well, they infiltrated the Black Panthers and had people in there that were violating the codes of conduct. They had people in there that were doing nasty things to each other to create distrust among each other. The FBI would write fake letters, from Martin Luther King to other people to make them think that they were beefing, because they know that when you start beefing, you start losing. So a lot of our people are trained at an early age to just go beefing with the people that they're supposed to be friends with. You beefing with your sister. That's supposed to be your number one ally. You fighting with your sister every day. How can your sister become your mortal enemy? It ain't supposed to be like that. That ain't right. You fighting with your homeboy. That's supposed to be your man. You're black. He's black. Y'all in the same struggle. Why can't you work together? You're fighting all the time. Well, that ain't right. Like, you're fighting with your coworkers. You're fighting with your children. You're fighting with your parents, right? All that was created by design because they did not want black people to have a clique. They did not want black people to have a gang. They did not want black people to become connected. That's why even in Hong Kong, they actually passed a law when they wanted to break up the protests. They passed a law that said you cannot gather in groups of more than 2 or 3 people without being arrested. During slavery, they had a law that said if slaves gather in groups of more than 2 or 3 people, then you will be killed or you will be locked up, right? Well, why is that? Well, that's because there are people that play chess, people at the highest levels, white supremacy, wealthy, whatever, oppressors. They understand something that a lot of us never learned as children, which is that unity is the key to power, and that unity is the greatest threat to oppression that there is. And in fact, J. Edgar Hoover, when he ran the FBI, one of the things that he said was that the greatest fear that they had in the FBI was the emergence of a black leader, a black messiah who could unify black people. So that's why they would deliberately undermine anybody who positioned themselves as a unifier of black people, aka Louis Farrakhan. Louis Farrakhan is one of those guys. He unifies people. He speaks in love. I've been around the minister a lot. I've been to his house several times, and every time I became I really admired how he just was so cool about being so loving and supportive to everybody, to the point where everybody kind of showed a certain deference to him, even people that were on different sides of the fence. He was the only guy that could bring rapper when Ice Cube and Common started beefing. Farrakhan brought Ice Cube and Common together to get them to become the best of friends. He could have done that with Biggie and Pac, but again, the white supremacist media wanted the chaos. They wanted the disunity. They used the media as the fuel to create animosity between 2 guys, Biggie and Pac, that should have been friends. They used to be friends, right? Imagine if they had sat down and talked it out and worked it out and said, let's form a union. Let's get together and form a clique and bring our power together. Imagine how powerful that would have been for the whole world, for the whole community. But no, that's a huge threat, and that's why people work overtime to stop that. So when you want to build young black millionaires, if you want your children to go on and prosper and to do well, figure out what your clique is. And if they have siblings, if they got 2 or 3 siblings, and you get 2 or 3 siblings that are just all on 10, that are all committed to the family, that are all deeply loyal to the family code, that are all busting their butt for the family business, then you can't lose. You're going to create millionaires out of that. So That's where young black millionaires come from. Also, with more specifically, you got things like the $5 a day investing plan, which is something you could do to make sure your kids have capital. When they're born and they're raised and they don't have capital, what happens is that you don't have any real estate for capital, you don't have any stocks and bonds for capital, you don't have any business ownership for capital. So the only capital you have is your body, yourself. That's why a lot of times when people get desperate for money, they'll sell their bodies. Sometimes it's extreme, like like somebody becoming a stripper or a hooker, but also even if you are a corporate person, you're selling your body. You go to your boss and you say, "Hey, here's my resume. I'd like to sell hours of my life and commit my body to you to come and work for you because that's the only capital that I have." So then you end up in this terrible trade where you're trading thousands of hours of your life, something that's infinitely valuable. You're trading thousands of hours of your life for a paycheck, right? Because you have no other capital that you can sell. So 200 years ago, white people sold you into slavery. Now, 200 years later, you sell yourself into slavery because you have no capital. So everybody that gets what I'm saying, type the word capital in the chat. Just type the word capital so we understand that. The key to building these young black millionaires for the future is we build a capital base for them. And then also we teach them the skills to learn how to manage that capital base. And then we show them where their strength lies. Their strength lies in the core, in their clique, right? Again, going back to Sugar T and E40 and all that, siblings rapping, making each other famous together, right? They form the clique, right? So I want you and your own family to understand, like, what is my clique? What is my gang? What is my group? So that you can train that in your kids, so that when they grow up, you'll be a proud parent because you'll see your children all working together and helping each other succeed, helping each other become successful. Okay. All right. So by the way, in case you don't know, if you want to log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com, I'm actually today going to also put another piece of content in there about the stocks that I'm buying this week. I did some research on some really good plays, particularly in the pharmaceutical industry that I found that I'm actually investing heavily in. So I'm going to break all that down. What Dr. Boyce is buying is part of your curriculum, in addition to all the other things that are in there. So let me dive in and start answering some